I am Michelle Cavanagh. I'm a corporal. Joined the army in 2004 as a military clerk. Worked my way up to the rank of staff sergeant. Served in Washington DC and then decided to become a military nurse. I did my training in Winchester. I've deployed to Northern Ireland twice, Iraq, Afghanistan. I served in Germany and Scotland, and I served in Washington DC in the embassy, and then I got sent to Pirbright as the FSA, and that's where I finally drew the line as a clerk and stepped in to become a military nurse. I'm currently in my third year as a student nurse at Birmingham City University, where I would like to qualify at the end of this year and become a military nurse starting next January. As a military clerk, I could be attached to any unit within the army. So I was attached to infantry, signals, HQ ARC, which is the NATO, headquarters for the Allied Rapid Reaction Corps. And I also served in Washington, DC as a military admin clerk, looking after about 1,400 service personnel with their families located all over America. At that time, it was over 6 time zones, I believe. So it was quite interesting to work mostly just on emails and looking after the admin for all those people scattered all over America. It was a very, very busy job. I also served in Glasgow in the Army Personnel Centre for 2 years, after which I went to the Army Air Corps as a regimental accountant during my time as a military clerk. So when I went through training in Winchester, I met quite a few girls who were going in as nurses. And I always said to myself, if I could join the army again, I would join as a nurse. And while serving in Washington, DC, my husband said to me, why do you keep saying if you could join as a nurse, you would join as if you could join again, you would join as a nurse? And he said to me, why don't you have a look and see if you could transfer to become a nurse in the army? And at that time in Washington, DC, I also thought that what posting as a clerk could top being in Washington, DC, and I felt that it was time to have a look at joining as a nurse. So I sent an email to a major in APC Glasgow, who came back with details for a nurse who worked in Sandhurst, who was dealing with transfers at the time. So I got in touch with her and she let me know that I would have to have GCSEs in certain subjects and A-levels, I think. So I sent my qualifications from South Africa to UCAS, who converted my GCSEs for me. And they came back and said that I would have to complete an access course in order to have the qualifications to transfer to become a military nurse. So the access course I completed within 9 months. I think you get 2 years to complete it, but I was so keen to get it done to see if I could transfer. So I quickly completed that course, sent it away, and then got called forward for an interview to become a military nurse. So I came back from the British Embassy in Washington, DC to my Pirbright posting. And because it was so close to Sandhurst, I decided to go and see the team there for an Insight Day. And I made it just in time, just before COVID happened, to go and see them. I also did a day's experience at Frimley Park Hospital to see how things were. And then COVID happened and everything started to take a long, long time to get processed. I also then chased up my contacts in the APC to get me onto an interview, and I made it onto one of the last interviews for that year, which was a telephone interview. And I got accepted to become a military nurse, which is amazing. We were meant to start our course around about the 4th or the 5th of January. But due to COVID, the direct entrants were actually I think they were on camp for a day and then got sent home because everything was moving on to online lessons. For me, it was almost like a comfort blanket, not having to go into lessons with all the brand new people. I know I used to get posted every 2 to 3 years, but it was in an environment I felt comfortable in, like being a clerk. So being a nurse and being twice the age of everyone else felt very daunting for me. So we did most of our lessons, well, we did all of our lessons in our first year online. I never got to meet anyone face to face until about September time, I believe. But being online and working on teams made me feel comfortable. It was once everything moved to being on camp, luckily it was only like every month we would have maybe 2 lessons in our second year that was on campus. And I got to make friends very quickly with the young ladies. They actually call me Mama Michelle, which is quite funny because I feel like I'm one of them, but there is definitely that divide with the age and with the experience in the military. So they always come to me with questions about being in the military and what would I have done if this happened. And so there is that mum factor, I suppose, in our lessons. There are other transferees as well, but they've done maybe 5 or 6 years in the army. I've done 19 at this stage. So I do feel like I can pass on a lot of military knowledge to them, although I do sometimes feel out of depth when it comes to the new army way of doing things. Always when I was younger, when the older people said, oh, it's not the army I joined, it sometimes feels like that to me, but I tend not to say it too often to the youngsters. And I just try and see it from their perspective. It is a very different army. Rules are very different, for the better for most of it. But it's just getting my mind around some of the new things that's involved in looking after people. In September, we had a 13-week placement for our first placement. And because we didn't really have hands-on experience on anything, it was quite hard just knowing where things would be in the ward. And although we did theory on how to measure blood pressure, I've never actually put a cuff on anyone's arms until September that year. Unfortunately, my placement was cut short after about 6 weeks due to my dad being sick in South Africa and me rushing to be with him for 6 weeks of my placement. He did recover at that time, so it was worth every minute sitting with him in the ICU at that time. But going back to being on the ward for the first time, I was on an orthopedic spinal ward, but at the time it was more a COVID ward. But I learned a lot about personal care at that time, accurate blood pressure readings. Yeah, it was good. Unfortunately, I wasn't in that placement with any of the girls I knew, but I got to know some of the Birmingham University girls, and I fit in quite well with our team, because even now when people go to that same placement area, people from that area ask about me and how things are with my dad. So I did leave a little bit of an impact there, which is nice. Yeah, that's about my first and second year covered. This year I've spent a lot more time on campus. I've got to know a lot of the girls now. Well, I know the whole cohort now. I've fit in quite well. I think I've fit in better being a military nurse than I ever had as a clerk, which is amazing for me. So as I mentioned before, I was a staff sergeant in the AGC, military clerk, before I transferred, and then I reverted back down to corporal, which is understandable because it is starting from scratch. So you can't really expect me to be up at staff sergeant level when I've just qualified as a brand new nurse. unfortunately, in my military career, I've only got about 3 years left once I qualify, which will give me my return of service that I owe the army for sending me to become a nurse and putting me through my degree as a paid student. So if I can, I would like to apply for extra service up to the age of 55 once I'm eligible to do that. Or I would look at commissioning if I could as a late entry officer. If I can't do that, I would like to join the reserves once I complete my army service. Some of the challenges I met straight away was the technology used. So all of a sudden I went from just being able to send emails on Modnet and working my magic on JPA as a clerk to having to use Teams and Moodle pages and university apps. And so for me, it was quite a big challenge, just the technology of being a student. But like I said, some of the youngsters were quite keen to teach me that side of things. Another thing for me is being South African and having come to the UK. I've never actually done any of my training in English before. So my schooling was in Afrikaans, and all of a sudden I had to write 1,500 word essays in English and in proper English. So my first year was very, very difficult in that sense of trying to convert everything I've done before into a different language. And I seem to have progressed in my English language just by, in my first year, in most of my essays, well, both my essays I had to submit, I failed the first time round. And in my second year, and well, I've not received any marks this year, but in my second year, I received quite good marks for my essays, which is a progression for me, which is always good to see. A personal lesson I've learned from transferring is it doesn't matter how old you are. If you want to do something, put your mind to it, work hard and do it straight away. Don't wait. I always waited, and I think I waited too long to do this. I really, really enjoy being a student, a paid student at that as well. So lesson learned, don't wait, just do it. Best thing in my army career now is the ability to follow my dream and become a military nurse. And the worst thing I said before on my survey was the Doc Martens. Those shoes are horrible. I find it really difficult to wear them. But the worst bit now for me is losing my dad so close to my qualification time. He always pushed me to do what I wanted to do, him and my mum. And he was very proud the day I told him that I could transfer to the nursing corps and I would gain a degree and a good career after that. And unfortunately, about 8-9 weeks ago now, he passed away. So I know he was really excited to come and see me graduating next year, and unfortunately he won't be there, but my mum will be. So, and in a way, he will probably be very proud when the day arrives. But I've known about Florence Nightingale since I was about 5 years old and ready to understand things. Going back to my dad, he actually had I think it was his first or his second heart valve replaced in a hospital in Johannesburg that was called the Florence Nightingale Hospital. So from a young age, he always mentioned that hospital. So as soon as I could understand, I probably asked him who Florence Nightingale was, and he would have told me that she was a nurse who looked after soldiers in the Crimean War. Probably not the Crimean War, but he would have told me that she was a nurse looking after soldiers. And for me, I think as well as, in a way, I've never actually, when my dad was ill, I never actually thought about the doctors looking after him, because we always interacted with the nurses. And I might have thought at that time that Florence Nightingale reflected in all nurses working with my dad. To be honest, Mary Seacole, I didn't really know anything much about her until I came onto the nursing course, and I saw that our lessons were being conducted in Mary Seacole building. That's probably when I would have started looking into what she did for nurses and military personnel. But Florence Nightingale is always the person who sticks out in my mind whenever you speak about nursing, and just looking at the way she changed nursing from soldiers dying with things that they didn't need to die from, like infections and bacteria, and how this simple hand washing technique that she then thought of saved so many lives.